of the worst feelings for a dieter is when you feel that internal snap and you know that your willpower, that white knuckling, has left you. You start eating in a way that is so scary and you just see all that hard-earned progress just completely go away. You keep trying harder and it's almost like the harder you try at that point, the worse it gets. It's like what we're used to in life is if we try harder, we get better results. When I was learning how to snowboard, I wasn't doing very well getting down that hill and I applied more effort. I tried harder and I was able to make it down without medical assistance. Yet, when it comes to dieting, I would be like a painful overeater before I'd go on a diet, and within days, I would find myself so out of control, pulled over in my car, binging, and like eating things out of the trash, like crazy. So why? Why is it that in most areas of life, we're smart women, we try harder, we get better results, yet when it comes to dieting, when we try harder, things just get worse? In this episode, you're going to learn why trying harder actually doesn't work, and far more important, you're going to learn what actually does. So why is it that in most things in life, when we try harder, we get better results? And yet, when it comes to dieting, that is absolutely not the case. And common sense and your experience show us that trying harder usually results in more successful outcomes. And, the research bears this out. Ordinarily, in most situations, intending to do a behavior increases the likelihood that you'll actually do the behavior. You intend to drink more water, that increases the likelihood that you will actually consume more water. Yet, this does not stand up when it comes to restraining or dieting. In fact, the research that looked specifically at the impact of intending to restrict, planning to be good on your diet, what impact that had on your actual eating, results showed that planning to restrict or eat less on day one resulted in eating significantly more on day two. And if you've dieted for any amount of time, you probably don't need a team of researchers to tell you that. You just take a look at your life, right? But the thing that you might need to hear, and I really want to share with you, is not that restricting backfires, because that's just a fact. What I want to communicate to you is that it is not your fault. It is the direct result of something we learned to do in dieting that completely backfires. And that's what we're going to dive in and learn in today's episode. So why? Why do intentions work with some behaviors and they don't work with dieting? It has to do with this part of our brain that is in charge of keeping our value consistent, right? So when you are in the dressing room and you're underneath that mean fluorescent light with the three-way mirror and you're trying things on and nothing fits, even that next size up that's like not your normal size is too tight, and you have that dressing room meltdown, like where are my girls? Like, have anyone else ever had those? I used to have those when I was younger. And in that moment, it was like, no food in the world was worth that pain. It was so demoralizing and sad, and I felt so powerless and awful that it was like, okay, I am gonna, start over and do a new diet plan, and nothing in the world is worth feeling like this. So in that moment, we start a new plan. And the driver, the motivational driver for why we're starting that plan is the pain from overeating. So it's a solution that we pick to stop the overeating. So we go on plan. And right when you pick the goal, you get some immediate relief. You're like, okay, I feel really hopeful. I've got some structure. This time it's totally going to be different. Why wouldn't it be different, right? And we start feeling really good. So on plan and restricting food seems like our savior. It's akin to if we were out like in the wilderness on a safari and we had a car and we were out in the field just looking around and suddenly we saw a lion charging at us. Well, you'd look around and you'd see, oh my gosh, my car has a trunk. Getting into the trunk of that car would be the most welcome oasis in the planet, right? That's like the only place you would want to be. You'd run and dive and close the trunk while the lion's charging at you because it's so worth it. The trunk is the solution and the amazing savior to our problem of the lion coming at us. We're reacting to pain by creating a solution, the pain of feeling overweight in the dressing room. We have the solution of going on plan and restricting and dieting, the pain of the lion charging at us in the wilderness. We're going and locking ourselves in the trunk. And that's great while the pain is present. And the minute we get in the trunk, or the minute we get our new plan and our diet and clean out the kitchen and, get all of our list of approved foods, we're like, and we have that really profound sense of relief, right? It regulates our emotions. We're feeling better. We're like, okay, I've got this. And since the behavior was driven by a reaction to pain, as the pain starts to lessen, we have some progress on our diet, right? We lose some weight, or we get out of the freezing dressing room and we get, at home or away from that fluorescent light. We have some cozy sweats on that are all clean and they smell really good. They're kind of loose fitting. We're on the phone with our best friend. So we either get physical distance from the pain because we've made progress, or like psychological distance because we're not staring at ourselves critically and we're in a better state. Well, the pain from overeating and overweight starts to come down. So therefore, the motivation to stay strictly on plan or to stay locked in that trunk when the lion, we don't hear it, it's nowhere around, like we've been in the trunk for 3 days and we haven't heard a lion for all 3. Suddenly, we go into the second phase, which is struggle, because our motivation has gone down a bit. And so it feels like you're kind of trapped in the trunk, or it feels a little bit harder to eat yet another piece of celery as a snack or another food prepped grilled chicken and vegetables. It kind of starts to feel really effortful. Then we go to the third phase where we snap, right? Something happens at work, somebody takes credit for something you've done, or, you get tagged in a really unflattering picture online. Your kids are freaking out in the back seat. They throw a sippy cup, which is going to turn into sour milk all over your car. You've done a really rough week. Your friends invite you out to a pub for drinks and burgers, and you're just like, I don't want this pressure of this crazy food monitor over my shoulder being like, don't eat that, don't eat that. Is that too much? You should probably stop now. It just feels like pressure. That which felt like our savior, right? The on plan or getting in the trunk from the lion, when the pain of the overweight or the pain of the lion, we don't hear the lion anymore, is gone, suddenly the very same thing going on plan that felt like our rescuer is now feeling like our prison, right? The same diet plan that we were so relieved and so regulated by picking now feels like it's holding us captive. Then we enter the phase of that pain of dieting becomes our new pain. Before, the pain of overeating and feeling out of control, or the lion, was our motivating pain. And then now that that's fine and that pain has dwindled, we're getting that whiplash over to the new pain that was created by our solution, where it's like, I just need a freaking break from this pressure. I just want to have a burger. I don't want to count calories. I want dessert. I want onion rings. Leave me alone. And we go, forget it. And we have that disinhibited off-plan eating. And it feels so nice at first. You finally get to eat whatever you want, and all those foods that you haven't eaten for all that time, you line them up and you're eating, and you're just like, oh, this freedom feels so nice. And just to be free from that pressure and constantly restraining feels amazing. And then when the pain of clamping feels like it's gone away, we sort of come to, we're feeling kind of bloated, we're feeling a little defeated, maybe a little demoralized, and that relief gives way again in the circle here to that old familiar face. So, it's like we were in the trunk, felt really like we were held captive, and it was like, oh, I'm just stuck in here being held prisoner. I haven't heard a lion. So we go out in the field, right? And we're skipping around like, woohoo, I'm free. And it's all great for a while until we see a lion charging at us again. And so we're square in the face of feeling demoralized that we've overeaten, feeling bloated, feeling like a failure, all the weight that we had lost. we've undermined all that progress, and suddenly we're back at that same pain from overeating, and getting locked in the trunk or locked on plan suddenly seems like the best solution again. And it's dizzying, right? Like, so many of us spent years, if not a lifetime, on that cycle. It is a cycle. In the systems theory, this is called an oscillating system. It's an oscillating isn't bad. It's kind of like a thermostat. An oscillating system is designed to keep something within a finite range. So it's like when it gets too hot in the room, the air conditioner comes on. When it gets too cold in the room, the heater comes on. That's an oscillating system. It's like a seesaw, right? Well, a seesaw is great for some things, but it's terrible if you're wanting to, travel distance to get from point A to point B. Losing weight needs what's called an advancement system, a system that can take you on a trajectory, not one that keeps going on a cycle. So this is why the exact design of that kind of like balanced credit line yo-yo seesaw is why trying harder on dieting backfires, because it's something that I call poisonous progress, where with every unit of progress we make by restricting, we are creating the tension and pulling the coil that is going to backfire and boomerang on us in the gasping, right? It's like holding your breath when you swim across a pool. I always say when you come up from the pool, you don't just take a polite inhalation like, if it was a really long distance, you like gasp and heave. Even long after you have enough oxygen, you're still gasping psychologically for the food. Similarly, when we clamp down and restrict, we are building up that tension. We're caught in between these two places. We're caught in between, I want to make progress and I just want to like have enjoyable peace while I'm eating. And the closer you get to progress, the more tight the tension gets pulled on the enjoyment, because you're really like sucking it up. And so then you snap and go back that way and you overeat. But then the more tension you have on progress, because then you're feeling the pain. And it is a dizzying cycle. So whatever we're doing, that reactive response by clamping down and restricting, every unit of effort we put in is going to then result in a corresponding effort that's going to bang and hit us in the face. So it's like trying harder with a boomerang. It's just going to hit you harder in the head, or in the thighs was usually my case, right? I would end up overeating. So we don't want to live our life locked in the trunk of the on-plan diet. And we also don't want to live in the perilous danger of the wilderness with the lion coming at us, of that out of control eating where the food's choosing us and we're undoing all our progress. But there is a third way. There is the third way, which is kind of the equivalent of building a house or a city with a nice protective fence around it with a gate. You could go out the gate, but the fence protects you where mostly the lion can't come into you, but yet you're not locked in a trunk. And that's what I call win-win eating. So with dieting, what we do is it's a conflict model. You have progress on one hand, and then enjoyable moments on the other hand. And we sacrifice one for the other, and that will keep us on that seesaw, on that like whack-a-mole yo-yo cycle, where at best all you can have is temporary toxic relief. We're just toggling, whiplashing back and forth between the temporary toxic relief of like, oh, I'm on plan, and then it starts to feel terrible, and the temporary toxic relief of being off plan, because they keep undermining each other. The way we resolve this, and this is what I teach the women in my program, so that they can get permanently thin, because we want to change that tension model. Like, I studied it from a systems perspective, and we want it to be where we have tension pulling us toward our goal, pulling us toward slimness, and nothing pulling us backward. Think about it like walking up a hill where there's a yucky, fiery moat at the bottom, and all your favorite people and a shiny hotel pool at the top of the hill. There's no incentive to go backward. Sure, you might stumble, but there's no incentive, no pull to go backward. Where when we put ourselves on the diet gasping cycle, there is absolutely an incentive to go off plan because, like, there's 80% of the foods you like, you only allow yourself to have them. Think about this when you go off plan, right? So you're like, well, I've already blown it. I might as well stay off plan until Monday because this is the only time, right? We eat like there's no tomorrow. It's the only time that we're allowed to have those foods. So there's also the incentive to restrict and go on plan because we're needing to feel that semblance of control from feeling so scary with our eating. But the third way is where you can do this exercise. I have everyone write down, and some of their answers are so moving. It can seem so superficial, like all about losing weight, but it can really, really hurt. And we suffer some really deep, powerless pain when we try to restrict and we find ourselves like really demoralizing overeating. It's really painful. And so to get a grid and a paper, and I want to invite you to answer 4 questions for yourself when this video is over. Maybe just write them down. We want to identify what it is that you really, really, really like about being on plan. You're a smart, amazing woman. You wouldn't keep going on plan if there weren't some things you really liked about it, right? And most of my people from my group, when they answer it, myself included, it's that I really like the structure. We really like the orderliness and the certainty that if I do A, I will get B, the outcome I want, right? There's safety, structure, decision fatigue gets resolved. You kind of know what you're going to do. You don't have to keep answering the questions. So then we want to identify, what do you friggin' hate about being on plan? Hate the constant pressure that you could never just chill, relax, and friggin' have something to eat, right? It's that constant nagging pressure. Like for me, I absolutely can't count calories. I lost tons and tons of weight and have kept it off for decades permanently. I'm like permanently thin now, eating whatever I want, but I personally couldn't do it through calorie counting because that's one of the things I hated about being on plan, is that the minute I would count calories, I would feel so constricted and so suffocated, like I was in a room that was shutting in, that I would like instantly like binge right away because it would feel so scarce. So it's that pressure, coercion, somebody's always nagging at you and looking over your shoulder and like kind of pulling the food away. So those are some examples of things that you might not like about being on plan. And so next you can look at, what do you really, really like about being off plan? I like cake, chocolate. I like freedom. Freedom's really important to me. I like flexibility. I like feeling normal. Like when I would go out with people, I didn't have to have my own salad dressing in my purse, and I didn't have to, look at the menu like almost like defensive menu ordering. Like what's the least caloric thing I can get, right? With the biggest volume. I could just be normal and eat what everybody else was eating instead of having to have some diet alternative. That sense of freedom, yumminess, fun. You could have cake at a birthday party, spaciousness, choice. One of the things that I really like, a lot of people tend to like about being off plan. And then what really, really hurts, what's true pain that you don't like about being off plan. And that is that really scary, scary feeling. For those of us who have dieted for a long time, dieting, it's proven to lead to binging. It is the cause of binging. So it's not some weird confessional that there's anything wrong with you that you've binged if you dieted. Like if you didn't binge and you dieted, then you would be abnormal. That would be the actual aberrant, abnormal behavior. And joking, but I'd be worried about you then, but not really. So those of us who have dieted, we end up ferociously binging, and it's scary and it's demoralizing because usually when we're in that really constricted dieting space, I know for me, it was really tied to my worth. I just was like, oh my gosh, if I can't get thin, then I won't be lovable. I really believed it was like tied to my worth. And so not only would I not succeed at my goal, like in my head, it's like we're pack animals. I felt like I'm going to get kicked out of the pack. It's very painful when you really pause when you're binging. Like we fantasize and we kind of market ourselves and get ourselves to binge by it promising that it's going to be like, Calgon, take me away, this amazing oasis, right? Of like, oh, I just relax and the food's so yummy. No, it's this really frenetic, addled, junky vibe where you're just, mechanically munching. You're not even tasting the mouthful of chips that you have. You're like focused on getting the next one in. It's really agitated and urgent, and it's really like compulsive, where we think that by having some it's going to scratch the itch and we're going to be satisfied, but it totally doesn't. It is urgent, obsessive, insatiable. It's scary. It feels like the food's choosing you. It's secretive. It's weirdly selfish. Like, normally I'm a pretty generous person, but like back when I was like binging, I didn't want anyone to have the food. I just really brings out so much pain and powerlessness. Dieting crosses your overeating wires. So we're constantly toggling between on plan, off plan. The third way, and what I teach in my Thin Happy Sane group, is instead of having two goals that you're constantly having a moral arm wrestle over, am I going to be on plan and making progress, or off plan and having some enjoyment? It's kind of like, have you ever seen someone so mean throw two balls in two different directions for a dog, and just like the torture that dog's in? Like, that's the feeling that we're in. Instead of being divided and conflicted, we create a single goal so that you can be united, and it takes you off that seesaw, that oscillating system, and puts you onto an advancement system, which is like getting off a seesaw and getting into like a really nice, well-tuned luxury convertible sports car. And the way that we do that is we replace you either get gasping enjoyment or making progress, clamping down on one side. We replace that with a single goal of enjoyable progress. At any moment, we can't suck it up now to pay later. It has to be enjoyable now and relatively enough progress yielding later for ourselves. This way, it gets us out of conflict. What we do is think about that hill. We take all the things that we don't like about dieting and all the things we don't like about binging, and we shove those down at the bottom of the hill. There is nothing enticing to roll back there to. I don't want to feel the demoralization of, having to hide a bunch of wrappers and feeling bloated and discouraged that I just overate. Nor do I want that annoying food monitor constantly taking food away and telling me I should have carrots instead of, like onion rings at a point. There's no motivation to go. We put them both at the bottom of the hill, and at the top of the hill, we put all the things that we like about being on plan, that structure, feeling like on it girl, checking the boxes off, feeling really goal oriented, actually eating food sometimes that feel better in our body than kind of checking out and just gorging. And we put all the things that we like about being historically off plan, which is like flexibility, yummy food, true satisfaction, as I talked about in my video on ghrelin, which shows that by feeling like we're restricting, it increases your appetite by 300%, right? So we really want to make sure that we give ourselves satisfaction. So one thing that you can try and play around with is to really identify what you like and don't like about your on plan and what you like and don't like about being off plan, and then create that single goal of enjoyable progress. There's nothing to rebel against. No part of you is going to want to rebel when you're like, okay, sure, we could stand up and eat the whole box of donuts and then feel really, really sick to our stomach and bloated and not feel cute in the outfit we wanted to wear tomorrow. That's an option. Or, and then your brain's like, well, okay, that doesn't sound so good when you put it that way, which is different. And I'll make a video about that in the future, about coercion versus just giving yourself all the options and actually trying on, because most of our gasping eating is our rebellion against that food monitor coercing us. It's like us being a teenager and climbing out the window because it's like our parent is being way too controlling. So instead of trying harder to get to your destination on a seesaw, we want to try smarter and get the heck off that seesaw and get into your sports car, get into that single goal instead of a conflicting goal of enjoyable progress. So I'd love to actually hear from you guys. What do you love about being on plan? And what do you absolutely hate and hurts about being off plan? Go ahead and pop those below if you want. Get that conversation going. It's always really kind of comforting to hear, like, oh wow, I'm not the only one that's thinking like this, because one of my broken record points that I always make is that it is not you. The crazy behaviors that we feel and all the pain really is the direct result of using the wrong tool. We're like using a kitchen whisk to try to hammer a nail in, and it's not working, but it's not our fault. Once I can help you get the right tool in your hand, you feel like a rock star. You're like, what? Who nailed that in? Oh yeah, that's me. It's one of the fun things in our group is like people are like, what? Who lost 20 pounds? That's me. Or like, who went to try on her jeans on vacation and they were way too big and she had to go buy another pair? It's so enjoyable after struggling so long and feeling like, okay, the problem is legitimately me, I'm broken. Once you get the right tools in your hands to see how much easier and, like, of course it takes some effort, but no struggle. Struggle is that opposition. It can't have struggle or else it won't work. Sure, it can take some effort, but it's just so enjoyable to be able to see people finally having progress. And it makes sense, right? Because you guys are all like very bright, successful women. It doesn't make sense why dieting has not been successful. And now I hope I'm helping you understand and see that it's because you're using the wrong tool. So if this resonates with you and you want some support applying these kinds of skills to your life so that you can stop that yo-yo struggle and you can actually learn how to work with your body's motivational systems from the inside out so that you can get permanently thin, there's a link below. You're more than welcome to come and join. We'd love to have you in my Thin Happy Sane group, where I teach women. We meet like twice a week live. You get to ask questions. There's like 15 modules and hundreds of hours of workshop. If you use gasoline to put out a fire, no matter how smart you are, the fire is going to blaze out of control. And if you found this in any way helpful and it gave you some hope and relief, and you think it would help another woman out there grinding and struggling with food, it would help push this out to those women if you would give it a thumbs up, or if you just leave a nice comment. Just even a single word or an emoji, I think, like, makes it where it gets pushed out to other women, because friends don't let friends diet. Thanks for joining me today, and until we speak again, take great care.